Today we're talking about hard money. Not money that's actually physically hard like coins, but money that is secured against your property, aka real estate. You might also hear this type of money be called private money, and the reason why it's called private money is because it comes from an individual person, not necessarily a bank or an institution. And just to clarify, all hard money is technically private money, but private money doesn't necessarily have to be hard money. Again, remember that hard money is secured by actual physical property, whereas if you didn't have hard money, it would be unsecured, right? It's just a loan that somebody gives you and they don't have any collateral backing that up. For the purpose of what we're going to be covering here today, we're talking specifically about hard money that you can use for real estate financing and for your real estate deals. We're going to be covering what you need to know about hard money, how to get it, where to find it, when you need it, and why you might even be wanting to use it in the first place. Then we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of using hard money, so make sure you stick around until we get to that section so you know what to look out for and know how to use it to your advantage. Hard money is one of those things that can give you immense amounts of power, but it's also like one of those things where, with great power comes great responsibility, right? It gives you a lot of leverage and it can open up a lot of opportunities for you, but you have to be careful with it. You have to use it appropriately and make sure that your deal will work regardless of the fees that you're going to pay with borrowing that hard money. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Now that you know what hard money actually is, let's talk a little bit about when and why you would want to use it. Let's explore option number one. The first option is fix and flips. This is where you're going to find most of your hard money. A lot of the investors who are out there in the market right now are using what they call hard money to be able to go out there and purchase properties that need rehab and then even use that money to help rehab the property itself. So a lot of these times when the buyers are paying cash, they're not using their own cash for that property. They're getting a loan from another investor who's loaning them the money and then using that to therefore purchase the property. This is most often used because in these types of situations, the buyer needs to be able to close quickly. A lot of these off-market deals need to close within just a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks at most. This is why they're so heavily discounted in the first place. It's kind of like finding a good deal on something that you really want to buy. If you go to the store and you find an item that's on sale for 50% off and it's something you've been keeping your eye on for a while, it's probably going to sell really quickly until it sells out. Investment properties and off-market deals are no different. When these deals have to close, they have to close quick and you generally need cash. Also, as an investor, a lot of people will say when you're doing these fix and flip deals, you don't want to have your own money tied up into that deal. You want to keep it in reserves in case you get into a bad spot. If you're doing multiple deals with this type of hard money, you might end up in a situation where a deal takes longer than you anticipated, or maybe the rehab takes additional funds that you hadn't anticipated. And so having your own money in your pocket still to be able to supplement those situations can be really helpful. So if you talk to other investors, they're going to say you want to use hard money, don't use your own money, even though you can get a better return, and even though that you're using this hard money that's going to have fees associated with it, a lot of them will still say that you need to use hard money in those situations. And that's not to say that you have to, but it's just the recommendation from a lot of investors out there. So let's talk about option number two. Well, the other reason you might need hard money is because the bank won't lend on the property in the first place. It might be that the property is too rough, maybe it needs too much work, or maybe it's already totally demoed and the bank just says, look, this is not a habitable house, we're not going to lend on this. Or perhaps they're requiring a larger amount down in order to give financing. This is very common where you'll buy like commercial properties or you'll buy these rundown properties, or maybe something that's just a little bit weird where the bank says, hey, we're not going to loan you the full 80% or 90% or 95% of the value. We're only going to lend you maybe 75%, maybe it's 60%. Sometimes you get into these unique situations where the bank won't give you as much as you want. And so sometimes you need to use that hard money as kind of a bridge to be able to put in some of your own funds for a down payment, use the hard money for the remainder of the down payment, and then get the rest of the financing from the bank. A perfect example of this is how I use this on one of my own deals. I bought an investment property about 2 years ago now, and one of those situations that I ran into on this home was it had some weird title issues going on with it, and it was actually zoned as a condo even though it really kind of operates as a single family. And so because of that, it fell into a non-conforming loan, and the bank said, we're only going to lend you 75% of the total value instead of the 90% that we had originally kind of agreed upon, right? So I went into this and I said, well, I was planning on 10% down. Now they're requiring 25% down. How am I going to bridge this gap? So I had to go and find hard money. Luckily, I had another property that I could secure this hard money against in order to get those funds for the hard money as my down payment. So I went to this investor and I said, hey, I need to borrow $50,000. Let's do it in the form of hard money. He said, okay, no problem. We're going to put a lien on this other rental property that you've got. So if you don't pay me back, you still owe me $50,000 when you sell on this home, or if I have to foreclose on it, I can get my investment back. I said, okay, no problem. We put the lien on that other rental property. He loaned me the $50,000, which actually covered 100% of the down payment that I was planning on, and actually allowed me to get into this deal that now cash flows over $700 per month. If you haven't seen my video about how I did that deal, I'll link to it down in the description, so make sure to check it out if you've got time and if you're interested. So now that you know what hard money is, when you might need it, why you might need it, and where to actually use it, let's talk about some of the pros and cons associated with using it in the first place. But before we do that, guys, if you're enjoying this content, please consider sharing it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more about real estate, money, and finance. Let's jump into pros and cons. All right, so the first pro on our list is that it's fast. You can get hard money in a matter of just, honestly, a couple hours or maybe even a couple days. If you've got a relationship already set up with somebody, you can get hard money in the form of basically just a wire transfer, right? You're gonna sign some documents saying that you've got a note, you're borrowing money from that person. You're also gonna sign a form that says you agree to repay that note. And then you're also gonna have the lender put a lien on the property, either it's the one that you're buying or another piece of property that you actually own. So after just hashing out those three things, filling out a couple of documents and signing them, as long as the lender wires over the money, you can get it basically the same day if you needed it to, but just kind of plan on it being, 2 to 3 days. Ultimately, it's much quicker than using a bank. And having it be so easy is actually the second pro that I want to talk about. Literally, one of the documents is saying, yes, I want to borrow this money. One says, yes, I'm going to repay it. And then another one says, yeah, put a lien on this other property that I own so that if I don't pay you back, the lender can foreclose on that property and get their investment back from you. So that's actually the second thing that makes this so nice and so convenient when you need it. The third item on our list is that it's so negotiable. The cool thing about working with a private lender is, basically the best rate that you can negotiate is what you're gonna get with that. A lot of times you go to the bank and you say, I want to borrow money, and they'll say, okay, here's what you get. This is our origination fee, this is our interest rate. And that's it. There's really not a ton of negotiation there in most cases. However, with private money or hard money, you've got the ability to negotiate with that lender, and the stronger you can negotiate, the better deal that you can get on your interest rate and on your closing costs, or what they will call points. These points are basically just an upfront fee in order to borrow the money. So let's say that you're borrowing $100,000 and you're going to pay 1 point on that loan. That means that you're basically paying an origination fee of $1,000 in order to get that money in the first place. The fourth pro on our list is that it's not based on your income or your credit. Typically, when it comes to hard money, you're going to be able to get that money based on your reputation and your experience in past deals. The more times you borrow hard money and the deeper relationship you have with your hard money lender, the easier it's going to be able to get more funds for your next project. Oftentimes when you go to the bank, they're going to say, okay, what's your credit score? How much money did you make? What do your taxes look like? That's the information that the bank's looking for. But when it comes to hard money, they really want to know what you are as a person. What's your reputation? What's your experience with doing this? What's your background in this situation? They want to know that you've got the ability to repay, and a lot of that does come from the experience that you have in borrowing the money in the first place. Now that we've covered some of the pros, let's talk about some of the cons. Number one, obviously, is going to be that it's extremely expensive to borrow hard money. This is not something that you're just going to go out and buy 10 deals with by borrowing $1 million worth of hard money. It just doesn't work like that. You have to make sure that the numbers in your deal will allow for being able to pay the expensive nature of that hard money in the first place. It varies from area to area, and it also varies on the lender, right? I said that you can negotiate a better deal if you're able to. It varies from city to city, but in my area, you're basically going to pay about 12% interest rate and 2 points to borrow that money. So again, if you borrow $100,000, you're paying 2 points right up front, which is $2,000 in order to borrow the money, and then you're going to pay 12% on that money every single month. So that's $1,000, basically 1% per month in order to borrow that money. So it's not cheap, and that's why you want to use it for your fix and flip deals, where you're only going to own the property and have that money borrowed out for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months at most. Or you want to use it on a bridge deal, kind of like I did, where I went in, I used it as a down payment to purchase the property that I talked about, and then I was able to refinance after I got everything sorted out. In that case, yes, I was borrowing $50,000, so at 1% interest rate, it was $500 a month in just interest to pay that. There's no principal pay down in hard money generally. So I was paying $500 a month in interest, but for me, it got the deal done and it's what I needed. So that leads me right into the second item on our cons list, and that's that lenders will generally only lend you about 80, maybe 90% of the purchase price of the home. Let's say that you go out and you find a perfect fix and flip deal. You found it from a wholesaler who wants to sell it to you for $150,000. Great, you say, okay, I'll buy this for $150,000. Let me talk to my hard money lender. They might say, okay, I'll lend you 80% of that. Okay, well, 80% of 150 is only $120,000. The other $30,000 you're gonna have to come up with on your own. Basically, that comes out of your own pocket. And then on top of that, you've got the rehab money that you've got to pay as well. So out of pocket, you're still gonna be your $30,000 for the down payment to have your skin in the game, and then also the rehab money on top of that. The reason why lenders do this is because if you don't know what you're doing and you give up on that deal, they want to make sure that you've got skin in the game. And if they have to foreclose on that property, they can get it at enough of a deal that it makes sense for them to take over that property, finish the rehab on it, and then sell it and still make a profit on the back end. And I should mention that as you get more experience and you get more familiar with this process, you get a better relationship with your lender, they will lend more and more money. I know several investors who are able to get 100% of the purchase price and the rehab money financed through their hard money lender. So it is possible, you just have to be able to build your relationship with your lender first. And the third con on our list is that you have to have sufficient property in order to get the hard money in the first place. Like I said, this is hard money, which means that it's secured against physical property. So perhaps this is the deal that you're actually buying, but if it's not, you need to have another piece of real estate that you can put that lien on in the first place, just like I did. I had another deal that had enough equity in it that the lender felt comfortable with actually giving me a loan and securing it against that other rental property. So it does help to have more properties when you go and get hard money. It helps with your experience, it helps with your reputation, and it just helps overall to be able to have other areas where you can move money around if needed. And so with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something about hard money. I hope you figure out how to get hard money on your next deal, and I hope you go out there and you flip a major property and make major profits. Until next time, I'll catch you then.